Hey everyone, so today I want to make a video on how to think about AI solutions and not about how to create AI solutions. So I'm sure you'll find 1,000 templates online. If I go on my LinkedIn, if I go on X, you'll have every day some guys posting these insane NA10 or make.com scenarios, and you just make them your own and it will work. Now, if you are somebody who wants to create an agency or you're even doing it for your own business, you need to think differently about how to create AI solutions. And by what I mean by differently, you need to think about how it's going to integrate with the people who are actually going to use it. And to give you an example, I've removed the name of the company, but I really want to show you something that I did. So this is a content writing team. So you have a content director and you have 18 content writers, and I'm going to show you how it works, right? But you have a human in the loop step, and then there's the publishing. So that's pretty classical content creation team with a content director. This is something that's crucial, and this is what I want to talk about. So you have here the person who is going to be in charge, right? The person who's this whole solution is built for, and how is he going to use it? So the first one, the first thing we did was we integrated it with Slack, because all of the companies speaking on Slack, everybody is on Slack. So it makes sense that if you want to create a solution for someone and you want to make it easy for them to use, you create it with an integration on Slack. So what does it look like? Actually, that person can go on Slack, right? And send a message, please write about this with this agent, right? And take this into account, this link. And this is basically going to trigger a webhook on Relevance AI. Relevance, if you don't know, it's a really good solution to build agents. I have other videos on that. I'm not going to deep dive too much into it, but basically Relevance gives you the option. You can either, use a guided setup or you can build one from scratch. So check it out. It's Relevance AI. I'll put the link in my show notes as well. But basically the Slack trigger here, this is what I want to talk about. It's essential because instead of giving the login to the person you're building it for, and for the person to start learning this new system and log into Relevance AI, finding the content director agent, and starting to and chatting with the content director, hey, write an article about that. Instead of doing that, the guy doesn't need to do anything. He just stays on Slack and just sends a message. Now he can do it in the way it's built, he can just send a YouTube link, he can send a file, he can send a URL, he can just say whatever in words, and this will be transformed into an article. Just to give you an example, maybe. So this was please write an article about this, and then the content director wrote a content brief, right? He sent it to a content writer, one of the 18 writers. The writer finished the article for LinkedIn, then published it then he sent it back to the content director. The content director put it in Monday, and there's the human in the loop step where the person actually drags it to approve the post. So that's the first thing, right? The first thing was looking at how do people work in the organization you want to build the solution for. And all right, if you're seeing that Slack is critical for some companies, it's going to be something different. Maybe WhatsApp, maybe it's not going to be Monday. It's going to be ClickUp. It's going to be Trello, or it's going to be Google Sheets. Just make sure you're not focusing on only building the solution. The second thing we did, which is actually pretty cool, is that we built an ElevenLabs agent, so that enables the person just have a chat with this content director, a conversational agent. And this is something that I think is actually a game changer. So here's a content director, right? He can just either call the agent. The agent has a link, right? So he creates a Google Calendar invite with this link, a recurring invite. And then every week he just goes into the link and chats with the content director. Now the content director has something pretty cool. He has a list of questions ready for him every week. So every week there's a list of questions that are being updated. And the way it works, maybe I can show you. ElevenLabs agent. So here's an example. So these are all answered questions. That's amazing. So the agent will just ask a question and record, here's the answer. And once it's marked as true, it's sent to the Relevance agent via a web trigger. So you have a webhook. Every time a question is answered, the ElevenLabs send it directly to the content agent director. This is actually one triggered by the ElevenLabs agent. Please write a post about this based on this question. So here's the answer, and based on that, there's an answer. So what I'm showing you here is that the solution is the same, right? Relevance AI, nothing has changed. I did build some N8N scenario here to get the questions, to publish the answers, and I can share these. These are really pretty easy, not complicated scenarios, right? So you trigger a webhook to get the questions, and you respond with the webhook, you send the questions back. To post the answers, you just webhook, update the sheet, you look up the row, you update the row, and then you send that's the trigger to send it back to Relevance AI. But I think that it's really worth it, because if you're seeing not only the end results, because the feedback I've received is that the results are way better when the articles are written based on the replies from the ElevenLabs agents, because they take the words from the person and they transform it in a way that it's much more aligned with what the person means. So that's the first thing. But also the feedback is that it's so easy to use. It's a great user experience. So I want you to think about if you're doing any type of solution, and it's not only for content creation, obviously, but I think that in general, you should be thinking about voice. For whatever thing you're doing, voice is probably the most important thing, something that's just going to get better and better. If it's right now, for example, I'm trying to build an executive assistant, right, for myself. So I can have a conversation each morning with somebody, with an ElevenLabs agent, and just, here are the mails. Can you send an email to that? Send a Slack message to that person. Add this to my to-do list. Send a message, whatever. All of the things you can think of. You can do it by voice, and you can just, dial a number, talk to your agent, and any N8N scenario with the triggers and the webhooks to support whatever you need. Obviously, you could not do it by voice, right? You can do it only by chat. But it's what I'm trying to get it at here is that I've heard that the best Gen AI builders come from a UX background, right? Because they really think about the user experience when they're building a website or an application. And I think here as well, everyone would benefit by looking at the user first, and then about the solutions. Because the solutions, whether you have extra steps in the N8N scenarios, doesn't really most people don't care about the scenarios. Like, you're seeing a lot of images and impressive scenarios out there, and it's only impressive because to people that are actually maybe building the scenarios and are actually on N8N and make.com. But I think that for the rest of the people, if you're talking to a C-level or whatever, whoever your client is, they don't care if it's on make.com, on N8N, and they really don't care if there's another node here or another node there. Like, it doesn't really matter as long as it works. And what makes a great scenario or a great solution work is that when it's really integrated into the flow of the person you're building it for. Right? So think about first mapping out what tools these people are using, right? Here's Slack is missing, but try to map out what tools they are using and try to map out how it would work visually, right? And then only start building. Because I think that the N8N scenario, like, you might come up with some, problems of like, hey, it's not aggregating and I need, I need to tweak here and tweak that. But the solution you're going to deliver, that's what's, in my experience, that's what's also what impresses the people the most, is a critical factor for success. And also when you explain it to someone, right? Explaining to somebody like, hey, you can just, pick up the phone and chat with the content director, or just send a Slack message and everything will work fine. And then I'll show you what happens behind the scenes, right? So behind the scenes, you have this N8N, you have these relevance agents, and he's managing these 18 other agents, these 18 other content writers, and whenever you trigger him, he writes the perfect brief. And yeah, that's amazing, right? But the additional plus and the most amazing thing for you is that you don't need to log in here. There's nothing for you to do here. You just keep on working the way you work. You set up a weekly meeting with this guy. You call him up whenever you're in the car and you're driving. You have some free time to kill, and you just want to, hash out, be productive on the road. I mean, that's an amazing selling proposition. That's something that nobody else. I mean, that's giving values. Where if you focus on selling something like that, I mean, it shows that maybe what you're doing, but I think you'd have a way easier time to sell a solution. This is a solution that integrates. So I encourage you to maybe try, and for your next solution, right, try to maybe open a FigJam. That's a Figma for those who haven't tried it. There are other platforms I've been seeing using as well. Draw, you can try. I think it's free as well. I haven't tried it yet, but I think it's free. So you can try with that. I'm using Figma, FigJam, and it's free. And just for you, try to map out what would be like the perfect scenario, the most easiest way to use your solution. And I bet voice has something to do with it. And so you should get familiar with Twilio and ElevenLabs and maybe Vapi AI as well. I have some videos on it as well. So this is just a short video to maybe not talk about something technical, but that's nonetheless very, very important for you as well, is to think about your client. And I think this is going to be your best selling point. If you have any questions, let me know. Bye-bye.